Last time on Kabbalah University, the Shekhinah needs somebody to escort her to the palace. Welcome Moshe, right on time. But who will escort the Shekhinah? It must be the Torah scholars. Welcome Kate Ayelet, our new congratulations on your promotion to Yellow Belt. Last time on KU, who will escort the Shekhinah to her bridal canopy to meet with God? Only the Torah scholars, the ones who stayed with her the night before, all night long, and prepared her adornments, which we learned was the Torah and the mitzvot in Zohar Introduction 14. 99% are completely confused. Whoever showed up today will be the 1% who will leave with an understanding. Rav Menuna discourse as follows: suffer not with your mouth to say words which will lead your flesh into guilt. Watch what you say, basically, especially in the court of law. Always talk less instead of more. This is a warning. And what's the verse? What's the source? Ecclesiastes 5:5, Solomon 5:5. This is a warning to man not to utter with his mouth words that might suggest evil thoughts, and so cause to sin the sacred body on which is stamped the Holy Covenant, which we said last time is the Brit Kodesh. For he who does this is dragged into Gehenna, which we discussed last time, that is the Jewish version of hell. The angel presiding over Gehenna, we learned, is a very nasty character that you don't want to run into, by the name of Duma. And there are tens of thousands of angels of destruction that reside under him, ready to fulfill his commands. He stands at its door. But those who have carefully guarded the sign of the Holy Covenant welcome hope. Those who have carefully guarded the sign of the Holy Covenant has no power. Hell has no power over. This is not something that the Zohar says once. This is something that's a central theme in the Zohar. That one who guards the sanctity and the purity, especially of the circumcision, and anything relating to that, hell has no hold over this person. So now, David, this time, last time bridal canopy, this time David, and his affair, shall we say affair, with Bathsheba. What exactly is going to be the verdict? How does it play out in the heavenly courts? So now we're going to get a very interesting mystic behind-the-scenes look into what happens in heaven, according to the mystical text of the Zohar. What happens, what dialogue takes place in the heavenly courtroom between God, Satan, and the other people who are there, arguing over whether David should be or should not be held accountable. So, let's weigh the evidence in both sides. First of all, so Duma entered into the presence of the Holy One, blessed be He, with a mission. I want to cook King David. Right? Duma is on a mission to cook King David. And he goes into court in the presence of the Holy One, blessed be He, and says, O Lord of the universe, it is written in your Torah, and the man that commits adultery with another man's wife shall be put to death. Leviticus 20:10. And it is also written, with your neighbor's wife. Also Leviticus, but chapter 18. Fine. And also now, David, based on these two verses, I have a claim against King David, says Duma. David has misused the sign of the Holy Covenant. What shall be done to him? Question mark. So then HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blesses His name. Welcome to those who are just joining. Zohar Intro 14. So God comes to His defense and says David is pure, and the Holy Covenant remains untouched. Here's the reason why. Because it was revealed to me through divine intuition from the beginning of the world that Bathsheba and David were soulmates, way before she got married to her first husband. Now, so that's a very strong prosecution and a very strong defense. Now, if before you it was revealed, yet it was not revealed to him. So now the devil now again makes another claim. Just because you knew that Bathsheba and David were soulmates, did David also know that? Or did David not know that at the time? And he acted on information that would suggest that it was the wrong thing to do. Just because God, you knew, that doesn't mean David knew. Especially when you talk about divine intuition that only God would have and not David. Because of that, what was done, okay, and then he says further, what was done lawfully, since everyone who goes out to war first gives a bill of divorce to his wife. So that's on the side of the defense, King David's defense. That at the time, whenever somebody would go to war, there would be an automatic divorce. So the marriage would be annulled. And it's not considered to be infidelity if the marriage was dissolved before the meeting. So what was done lawfully, God says, since everybody who goes out to war first gives a bill of divorce to the wife, so they were divorced, and it's kosher, according to Jewish law. If it's a kosher divorce, then the situation is kosher. But it has to be done through the proper channel. Otherwise, it would be considered, like the verse says in Leviticus, that if somebody does not get a proper divorce and still goes with somebody else, that's the death penalty. So the actual official, that piece of paper becomes the difference between life and death. According to Jewish law, that one divorce document, whether when it was filed before or after, becomes the difference between liable or innocent in this case. Fine. Let's weigh some more factors. Even so the devil now, again, prosecutes. He should have waited 3 months. Which he did not, because the law is that after Jewish law, after you serve a divorce paper, you're still not allowed to be with anybody for 3 months. So there's a 3-month cool down period between partners, even after you serve the divorce papers, just to make sure that it's not emotional or impulsive. So there's a 90-day window. And now Satan's claim is that David did not wait 3 months. So then God defends David again and says that rule only applies where there's a risk that she may be pregnant. So God pulls out a deep secret behind the law, behind the Jewish law that only God would know. That only the 3-month rule applies when it's a risk if she's pregnant. But if it's guaranteed that she's not pregnant, and we'll find out, how can you know? In this case, it happens to be that God says, I knew that Uriah never had intercourse with her, in witness of God himself. So God himself tells Satan that I know through divine godly awareness that he never impregnated her. That means the 3-month period was not necessary according to Jewish law. So then guess what Satan's going to say again? So now another prosecution claim. Again, God, just because you knew that, David didn't know that. So Satan is saying, with all due respect, God, I understand you know a lot, but David did not know that Uriah never got her pregnant. He was supposed to wait 3 months according to his human intellect. Only you knew that they never were together. Okay? And unless you share that information with David, I hold him liable. So then God says, in my name, I know that they never touched, because I swear witness that they never had intercourse. Okay. But then he says, O Lord of the universe, I must repeat my original defense. Just because you knew doesn't mean David knew. He ought to have waited 3 months nonetheless. Furthermore, if David was aware that he never came near her, then why did he send an order for him to go home and to visit his wife? As it is written, go down to your house and wash your feet, which is a metaphor for a union. According to the verse in Samuel, in the 11th chapter. So it's not looking too good for David right now. So then God responds, no. David is not guilty. And I'll explain why. Amar levidai la yada aval yitir mitei lim yecheru erich dahava arba yirchei havi. He certainly was not aware of her pregnancy status, and indeed he waited even more than 3 months, I'll have you know. He waited 4 months before he married Bathsheba after they got divorced. 4 months, not even 1 month extra. As we have been taught, the 25th day of Nisan, David called the people to arms, so God brings out the exact timeline. Let the record show that on the 25th of Nisan, David called the people to arms, and the people assembled under his military general by the name of Joab, which we will hear about, on the 7th of Sivan. And when they went and they smote the Ammonites, they remained there for the months of Sivan, Tammuz, Av, Elul, and on the 24th of Elul was the incident of Bathsheba. So God is running all these mathematics that shows that David is innocent. He waited more than enough after the divorce that it was kosher, and she's allowed to remarry. So it's not an affair, it was an incident. So God comes to the rescue. Baruch Hashem. Now we're going to see something very interesting, very fascinating. Welcome to those who are just joining. Zohar Intro 14. So the 25th day of Nisan, David called the people to arms. The people assembled under Yoav on the 7th of Sivan. They remained there for the months of Sivan, Tammuz, Av, Elul, 24th of Elul. So if you calculate all that, you get 4 months. David is innocent, my friend. And on the day of Kippur Atonement, the Holy One, blessed be He, forgave him for that sin, because even on some level, it was still a sin. So they remained there the months of Sivan, Tammuz, Av, Elul, 4 months, and then the incident of Bathsheba, and on the day of Yom Kippur, David still did tshuva, because it was still, he could have done it in a more professional way. Because kings are held to a higher standard. So it's not that David sinned. Kings are held to an even higher standard. That's why he waited 4 months instead of 3, and he still was told off by heaven. So it's called, like, they gave him a warning. Okay? So David is not guilty for Bathsheba. Baruch Hashem. He's a tzaddik. He's holy. But they still give him a little a scalding that he could have done better. Okay, fair enough. Because everybody always has room for improvement. So they scolded him. He got a little blemish on his record. But on the day of Yom Kippur, which is the main day for tshuva, where you say, God, I have sinned before you. I have done wrong before you. Forgive me for my sins. The main day is Yom HaKippur, the Day of Atonement. On that day, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God, according to Zohar in Shiro 14, forgave him for his unruly behavior regarding how he handled the incident with Bathsheba. According to another account, on the 7th day of Adar, David called the people to arms, and they assembled on the 15th of Iyar. And on the 15th of Elul happened the incident of Bathsheba. And on the day of Kippur, he did Shuvah and was vouchsafed the message that the Lord has put away your sin. You shall not die. Heaven has judged you favorably. But notice how they still call it a sin, because it's a blemish. But they don't throw the book at him. Okay? They're very careful. One thing you'll see about heaven is they're very careful how they deliver punishments. Exactly right. Not too much, not too little. So he received the message, the Lord has put away your sin. You will not die. To wit, you shall not die at the hand of Duma. So Amar Duma, so now Duma says, oh, master of the universe. He's losing the court battle at this point. He's getting kind of upset because he wanted to cook David. And now he's losing the court. Oh, Lord of the universe, I still have but one argument. That he himself said that I am guilty. He confessed the courtroom is in shock. He confessed. Saying that as the Lord lives, the man that has done this deserves to die. He thereby condemned himself, Your Honor, and my charge against him stands. God says, nope, you have no power over him since he made a confession to me. And he told me, I have sinned before you. I have sinned before you, God. Please forgive me for my sins. He has confessed before me, even though he was not guilty. Because I said he was innocent. But he still confessed. As for his sin in the matter of Uriah, I have prescribed a penalty for him, which he has suffered. But there will be no death penalty and no serious penalty here. Only a slight blemish. Duma returned to his place very upset. Oh, shucks. Right? This close. This close. Now we understand the verse in Psalms. Why do we say all this? Now we understand the verse in Psalms, Tehillim Tzadik Dalet in 94. Psalm 94. Adonai Ezrasa li kimat shchina duma nafshi. This is what David said, that unless the Lord had been my help, but a little would have been separating me from resting in hell with Duma. So he was this close, but Hashem saved him. Now, Duma also means silence, so it's a word play as well, double meaning. That is, if the Lord had not been my advocate, my defense attorney, there was only this much separating me from hell. Only by a hair's breadth, which is between me and the sinister power, did my soul escape from the clutches of Duma. So now we understand what David meant when he said this in Psalms. A man should therefore be on guard not to let slip any words like David. You shouldn't say anything that might incriminate yourself, since you will not be able to plead with Duma that it was a mistake, like David, who was vindicated by God himself. Blessed be his name. Wherefore should God be angry at your voice and destroy the work of your hands? No. The flesh of the Holy Covenant. So now, the flesh of the Holy Covenant, which man has defiled, and which, as a punishment, is stretched in Gehenna at the hand of Duma. So, there's two ways of looking at this. We could look at this like a literal hell, where people go to burn, or we could look at this like it's a metaphor for somebody who's not reaching their full potential. The hell in this instance can be a psychological condition of depression, where because you are falling short of your potential, there is a psychological torture, right? When somebody says, I'm not living up to my best self, that in effect is already a level of hell. The Zohar is describing a very deep mystical and psychological hell. And the actual physical hell, none of you have to be worried, because you're not going to, it's not for the average person. That the average person is not going to hell, according to this framework. So if anybody's having anxiety, you don't have to have anxiety. These are psychological and mystical models. So we begin Keach Umaisa Yediv Maigid Harkiya. So in Tehillim Yud Tes Beis 19, Rabbi Shimon resumes, the words, and the firmament showeth his handiwork, are an allusion to the companions, Zohar Intro 14, are an allusion to the companions who kept the bride company. Remember, we escorted the bride to the bridal canopy. Who will escort the bride to the bridal canopy? Only the Torah scholars. She doesn't want to be brought by anybody else. She wants the Torah scholars, the ones who were with her all night preparing the adornments, preparing the bridal gown, preparing her hair, makeup, ornaments, so she could look as beautiful as possible for the groom, which is the Kadosh Baruch Hu, God. So now we're talking about a union of the feminine aspect of the divine and the masculine aspect of the divine. Now Rabbi Shimon continues that the words, "and the firmament showeth his handiwork," in Psalms 19 is an allusion to the companions who kept the bride company and are the custodians of her covenant. This is somebody who keeps the Brit Kodesh, right? And that means they remain pure. They don't defile themselves. They don't dirty themselves. They don't go to places that are dirty. They don't go to places where people are doing inappropriate, not nice things. They stay in a place that is holy and they stay with God. They stay away from these not nice places. This is someone who gets to escort. What's the reward? That your perception becomes so mystical and so holy that you can escort the bride herself to God himself. But this is the honor of the highest mystic honors. This is for somebody who guards the purity of the Brit Kodesh, the Holy Covenant. So as we see, this is a central concept in the Zohar. And Brit Kodesh, of course, means the Holy Covenant of the circumcision. Okay. Because everybody knows that at 8 days old, the Jewish male, we have a halacha and the Jewish law that they remove an extra piece of the foreskin. But people think that it's random. No, there's actually very deep mystical meanings behind it. And we're starting to see, right? Bride, canopy, covenant, circumcision. It's a lot deeper than snip, snip. That's the joke for today. Every one of them, he telleth and inscribeth. The firmament here mentioned is that one wherein as the sun, the moon, the stars, and the constellations, which constitutes in the recording book. How did we jump? Let's find out. So Rabbi Shimon resumes. The words "and the firmament" shows his handiwork. What does it mean that the heavens is the best evidence for God? Look up to the skies. See, take a look at all the beautiful creations. And behold who have created these. What does it mean that the heaven is the best evidence for God? Tehillim, by the way, the verse is in Psalms 19, where it says this. This is an allusion to the companions. The companions of the Zohar, who learn Torah every day, who show up to class. Learning Torah, by the way, showing up to KU counts as learning Torah. By the way, I'll have you know, you don't even need to actively learn. You can listen passively and still reach holiness. That's a great deal. That's a great deal. You could passively absorb holiness, although we encourage activity. But the holiness is so pure that you can absolutely passively absorb wisdom from the Zohar. Everyone on their own level, of course. So every one of them, he telleth and inscribeth that the firmament here, the heaven here, mentioned is that the one, whereas the sun, the moon, the stars, and the constellations, right, the heavenly bodies, which constitute the recording book. He tells and inscribes each one personally as guests of the heavenly palace, whose desires shall always be accomplished. Now, Psalm 19 continues. Yom liyom yabia aimer. Day unto day utters speech. Very famous verse from Psalm. Each day of the heavenly days utters the praises of the companions. Every day of creation utters the praises of the Holy One. Of course, a very mystical idea. Each sacred day of the heavenly days utters the praises of the companions, the ones who escort the bride to her canopy via words of Torah, by preparing her adornments, which we know as prayer, meditation, and Torah. Beautifying her for her husband. God, and a night unto night reveals knowledge. That is, all the forces ruling the night extol to one another deep knowledge. So we also know that the luminaries exchange with each other esoteric knowledge. But also, don't get carried away here. It's a very mystical idea. I'm not saying that they're actually like chatting and chittering. They communicate the astral bodies communicate, according to the Zohar, in a very energetic way, not through like how human beings communicate, because they don't have lips and mouth and ears and nose. They're not anatomical. But yet they have a way of transmitting frequencies and communicating. As the verse says, "And night unto night revealeth wisdom." That is, that the forces ruling in the night, mainly the moon, the stars, share information with each other, deep knowledge of the companions of the Zohar. They talk and they gossip about the holy companions and friends of the Zohar, taking pride in the ones who are carrying the word of God and becoming their devoted friends. So we also learn that somebody who learns Torah is friends with the luminaries. That means the moon might vouch for this person, the stars might vouch for this person. And they share stories, they share legends, right? Did you hear about Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, what he said, this Torah and that Torah? Did you hear? Ein Amar ve'ein Devrim. So we'll go for 2 more minutes. And then we will take basically 1 or 2 questions on Zohar Intro 14. There is no speech, there are no words, neither is their voice heard. This refers to worldly conversation, which is not heard by the Holy King, nor does he desire to hear it. But as for the words of wisdom, the words of the Torah, Hashem listens all ears. So, it's another deep teaching of the Zohar that how does God deal with human chit-chat? He mostly ignores gossip, slander. He doesn't want to hear it. But words of Torah, he's all ears. Did you hear that Torah? I love that. So he's very, very proud. Gossip, he's like, I don't want to hear that. Torah, let me hear that. There's no speech, there are no words, neither is their voice heard. This refers to the worldly conversation, the idle chatter that has nothing to do with the wisdom. Okay. Which is not heard by the Holy King. He ignores it, nor does he desire to hear it. But as for the words of the Holy Torah, their line has gone out through all the earth. They trace the measure and the plan of all the celestial and all the terrestrial habitations. It is indeed through the words that the heavens were made, and it is through the praises sung in those words that the earth was made. The entire world was created only for the sake of the Torah. Let's see. Excellent. Welcome to those who are just joining. Who then inhabits the heavens? In them has he set a tent for the sun. The sacred sun has made his habitation in them and is crowned in them. And so we read, and he is a bridegroom coming out of his chamber. Who's a bridegroom coming out of his chamber? God. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, blessed be he, the one who created the entire heavens and earth. Only for the sake of sustaining his Torah, so that the human beings will get to know who he is and how he operates. So thus we read, as the bridegroom coming out of his chamber is a metaphor for God giving us the Torah, the holy text, which through the Torah you can marry God. Only through his text of God can you marry, truly get intimate, right? If somebody wants to get intimate with God, the Torah is the intimacy, is the holy text that is the intimacy that God gives us. He says, you want to know me? Here, read this. Thank you to our moderating team who behind the scenes makes sure that our class runs smooth and effectively. Your contributions are appreciated. And he's a bridegroom. Who's a bridegroom coming out of his chamber? Happily coursing through these heavens. Well, God himself. He's dancing, he's singing. When he emerges from them and hastens to another tower in another place, he is going forth is from the ends of heaven. 1 second to 1 second, he could travel the entire heaven in a light speed. But this is something we already knew. He issues from the supernal world, which is from the extremity of heaven above. So now the Zohar is going to say something along the lines of like a arm of the heaven coming out, but not an actual human arm. No, not an arm like a human arm, but the concept of heaven having an arm. Okay, not of flesh. The metaphor of an arm. The extremity of heaven, his circuit, is the extremity of heaven below, the circuit of the year, which goes completely round, extends from the heaven to the firmament. And there's nothing hidden from this heat. So it's describing the immense holy light that God can pull out, and immediately all sin disintegrates. But because of God's immense patience, he allows sin to happen in front of his face, which is extremely disrespectful, but he's extremely patient, only in a way that God can be. All right, so we're pretty much at the conclusion for tonight. Okay, and I know that we're in the thick of things and we're in the heat of things, and it's getting very good. But next time we will find out an even deeper mystery. So what happened? So finally the companions are discussing all the Torah that we discussed, from the bridal canopy to David HaMelech, if he's guilty, if he's innocent. Did he wait long enough? Did he not wait long enough? Is he a sinner? Is he evil? Is he good? Does he deserve death? Does he deserve just a tiny blemish? And God comes in and defends him and says he only gets a little blemish on his record. We love David. We love him. Yeah, I'm not saying what he did was 100%, so he's going to get a slap on the wrist, but we still love him. Meanwhile, Duma is trying to put him to rest. Finally, the companions get back to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the author of the Zohar, right, the mystic master. And he says, I see God on your faces. What were you guys talking about? I see the Shekhinah on your faces. Your faces are illuminating. Because of all the Torah that we were discussing, like the Torah we discussed just now, from the marital canopy all the way to David. And they were told this to Rashbi, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and Rashbi was in awe, and he said, wow, Hashem is so proud. And there's such a light shining from your face that he's literally here with us. And because you did that, now, what's your reward? You get to hear an even cooler Torah, an even deeper mystery, which we'll tell you next time. Tomorrow when we come to class next time. So, and of course the reward for a mystic Torah is an even deeper, even more powerful Torah that changes your life in an even more structured and fundamentally radical way. Baruch Hashem. Now the call to action for tonight. The April cohort is opening. The spots are filling up at a rapid pace. There are only a few spots left. If you want to join the cohort, don't wait. Message us right away. Blue Belt. There you will receive a dedicated cohort of your peers, one-on-one personalized mystic guidance for whatever you're facing, and the frameworks to make your day as structured as possible, and the frameworks of the Kabbalah. Now is the time in the class where we will take either a question, or we will meditate for a few minutes to close the class. So it's either time for a question, or we meditate. So take a nice, comfortable chair. Get into a comfortable position if you can. And if you will, I invite you to close your eyes with me. And before you change the breath, I want you to notice the breath. Notice your breathing. Is it deep? Is it shallow? Is it harsh? Is it smooth? Just notice. You don't need to change it. And just for now, just keep breathing naturally. And allow your shoulders, if they're tense, allow your shoulders to drop. Allow the tension to dissipate from your shoulders, then down to the chest, to the stomach. Every time, relaxing more and more, letting the stress dissipate. Until all the way to the feet, until your feet are on the ground. Uncross your legs if they're crossed. Why? Great question, because it allows nice blood flow to circulate through the body. So uncross the hands, uncross the legs. If your fingers are like this, right, this might be not tight for the blood vessels, but this is more relaxed. And then allow yourself to be in a comfortable posture in your chair. Not forced, not performative, not slouching, just normal. And then take a deep breath. And another deep breath. And on the inhale, I want you to imagine that you're inhaling light. On the exhale, darkness is leaving you. So when you inhale, you're inhaling light. The light from this class, the light from the Zohar. The light of accompanying the bridal canopy. How? Through the learning of the Holy Torah is the one who the bridal canopy, the bride wants to be attended only by the ones who prepared with her all her adornments the night before. So meditate on that you're preparing the adornments of the Shekhinah. You're helping the Divine Feminine, preparing her jewelry, preparing her hair, her makeup, her adornments to beautify her, because her wedding day is tomorrow. Can you imagine? Tomorrow is the day that she's going to meet her husband, Hashem, God. And she wants you, the student of the Torah, not the ones who are the wicked ones, who are gossiping, slandering, wasting their time not learning Torah. They didn't come to class tonight like you did. They didn't show up and give it your all like you did. Some days are hard. Some days you can't give it your all. But you showed up. That already is an amazing, amazing thing. Most of the ones who did not show up, the bride is not going to let a skirt. But the ones who did. And so as you're inhaling the light and preparing the bride for her canopy. And as you exhale, all the anxiety leaves you. That's it. All the earthly concerns, all the fears of economic insecurity or pain or relationship problems or physical problems or medical issues, all the pain and the worry. As you exhale, you can even go like this with your hands and physically let it go away. Let it leave you. You can take it. Research shows that when you actually grab your chest like this and actually push it away, it really has an effect. Who knows exactly how that works, but it really does have an effect. So you breathe in the holiness of the canopy, escorting the bride, putting jewelry on the bride, putting makeup on the bride. As you exhale, the devil leaves you, the anxiety leaves you. And with that, I'll wish everybody a wonderful night, and I'll see everybody tomorrow, of course, at the same time. Have a wonderful night. Have a wonderful night. Blessings and peace.